Hello and welcome to the Exponential Show. For our fifth episode, we have the pleasure of hosting Pear, who is the CEO and co-founder of Chew Green. And before we get started, just wanted to give a huge shout out to Multiply Marketing for sponsoring this episode. Pear, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thanks.
It is, for our fifth episode, it's great to finally have a woman entrepreneur on our show, so I'm glad you're the one.
I'm honored.
Great. So Pear, I think the first thing where we usually start is learning about our guest's journey and how different motivations and different events led to what you are doing today. So if you can just walk us through your origin story as a founder, please.
It's going to be a long story.
Okay. We are in no rush at all.
Okay. So I worked corporate life for, after I graduated, I worked in a company, like a media company, and then I started an agency life. And then, I have a passion for service. Like I like talking to people and, being able to deliver requirements of clients. And then that kind of led me into hospitality. Right. And then I went into hospitality for a while before I started my own company. The trigger point was, when you're working corporate life, you are, and especially in Bangkok with the traffic and, you have to get up really early and then you get home really late. My eating habit wasn't very good. So that was one of the trigger. I had a health problem. So I was only 24 at the time. I was working in an agency, and then at one point my back hurt so much that my mom came to help me, to massage it. And then the next thing I knew was I was knocked out. I blacked out onto the floor and gone. And so I was like, my mom, got me thinking that if I continue on this path, then it's either like the health or there's actually no other choice. I was having junk food, late night snack, eating while working in front of the computer, that kind of life. And so when gradually it kind of sinked in, and then during the time when I was working in a hotel, I realized that there's actually an opportunity to do something that is different. Right. So we walked into, my husband, we came home one night and on the way home we got hungry. So we stopped by a convenience store. We walked in and we were over 30 years old by then. And I was like, there's nothing we can eat. That would not make you feel guilty of eating it. And that was almost 10 years ago. So the health market was not very big at the time. True. So that kind of got me thinking, what a shame, because we live in a country where it's abundant with fruits, vegetables, and all these kind of food. And then, but why do we not have the choices that is convenient enough to allow us to eat healthy? Right. And gradually it came into the dry bananas that my mom made. Because my dad's a doctor, he always comes home with all this fruits, from patients, and we couldn't finish it. So my mom made sun-dried bananas with nothing added, and then I ate that one day. Actually, we both did, and then I'm like, oh, how come it's so good? It's not like how we saw dry bananas in the market. And then that was the first idea of the business, and that how Chew Green actually started.
Interesting, yeah. So it's
it's kind of connecting the dots.
True, and that's how. That's why each founder's journey is very interesting, right? And in a lot of cases, like in yours, it originates from a problem that you faced, and a eureka moment that you had with that sun-dried banana that you had. So it's great to hear how one thing leads to another, and then here we are in your new office.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, that's very interesting to know, and thank you for sharing that background. Since you started Chew Green, so can you tell us about the journey after that? So how you grew Chew Green and some other business verticals that you might have dabbled in since then?
Wow. That's almost 10-year worth of stories. So when we decided that this is something kind of worth trying or putting our effort into, because, like, ever since I started corporate life, and my husband Joe is also the same, like we put our 100 into everything that we do. So when we started the company, we feel that if we really give it our all, it would lead us somewhere. I mean, we didn't know where it would lead, but so we give it a try, and then so we started selling. Actually, the first batches of the products that we sold were like homemade. My mom made sun-dried bananas. Nice. So everything was, every process we like go into the details of, sourcing, having to learn about bananas from zero, because I don't cook. Nobody, and it's just like I don't really go into the kitchen at all. And then, having to choose materials and ingredients is a little bit of a new thing at the time. So we actually took us about a year of try and errors. We threw away a lot of bananas. Not throw away, but we had to find ways to get rid of them in a way that's not a waste. Right. So, and then we had to learn about how to choose the perfectly ripe bananas to sun dry and not add anything in there. And gradually, there was some market in health. At the time, health food store was kind of growing in Thailand. I think people were looking for healthier choices, and they're more conscious about what they eat. So we got an opportunity to go into a small health food store at the time. Actually, it's by Mayank. They still operate now.
I see.
Yeah, and that was our first step into a very niche market. Once that got into, introduced to this health conscious consumers, it was quite well received. Like, we were actually shocked as well, because we were like, is anybody gonna like what we do, because it's nothing added, but the cost is high. I mean, the price is not like cheaper, or because it's every detail that is different than adding something in to make it easier, right? Yeah. So, but it was good that the product was well received, and we started to gradually grow into other industries. Yeah. So, we started working with hotels because of I think it's also my background in hospitality, and I got the opportunity from my current now business partners, but at the time also my ex-boss. So gave us the opportunity to give it a trial. So to work with hotel, to be able to craft products based on the requirements that were given. And I think at that point we realized that there's a lot of untapped talents and untapped resources in Thailand where we can develop and innovate and create things that are just extraordinary, from things that we just see every day, like the Namwa bananas, like we see every day in Thailand.
True. Like,
who would have known that it would have led us this far?
Interesting. It's great to hear how things progress and how you eventually found the product market fit when it comes to the bananas to begin with. There's one thing that you mentioned that I would like to dive deeper into is the sourcing. And I know for a fact that it is very important to you that whatever you source is good for not just the environment, but also fair for the suppliers.
Yeah.
And this is something that you are very vocal about as well.
Yes.
So could you tell me about where that stems from and why it is such a big part of your personal and brand identity?
I think it gradually, like without me knowing, I mean, when we started the business, we didn't have this mission to start with, to be honest, right? Like, it was the first mission was to have something healthy available in the market, and then to be able to create that healthy products that has nothing added. It kind of led us into the sourcing. Right. So when we started to source our own bananas, we started off at the market like anybody else as well, But then we realized that if we don't go direct to the source, we're not going to be able to find the raw materials that would give us this perfect result. So gradually it was also connecting the dots that we have to go to the source. And then once we start to go to the source, and we there are people who share our values as well, because it was really hard for us at first to source the right bananas. You think bananas are easy, but to be able to not add anything, no color, no sugar, and to keep the color nice, and the conditions for the raw materials have to be just right, and you cannot find that in the market. Sometimes you have people cutting the bananas too young so that they can turn the produce over more. So we kind of almost gave up, actually, and then we realized maybe we should just grow our own bananas. Actually, at one point we were talking, do we really maybe have to find land and grow our own bananas? And during that process, we were lucky, and I think we've been very fortunate with sourcing that we got to meet people who share our values, who are like, I have to go back a little bit about our background, like personal background as well. We are both Buddhists, and as part of that, it's like how to have integrity in everything that you do in your actions, and to make sure your actions lead to something that is, create a positive result, rather than destroying things along the way. And that personal mission I think it kind of connected us with people who share the values. And once we found growers and smaller producers who also share the values, and we realized we don't need to do everything ourselves. Instead of doing everything ourselves and create extra supplies, what if we can work together? What if 1 + 1 is not 2, but it can be 4, 5, 6? Because every of our partners, like supplier partners, we all have our own expertise, and we're good at what we do. But if we can create a condition where we can work together in a way that is 1 + 1 is 4, 1 + 1 is 5, it will be better. And in that process, we kind of like going backwards to the source and digging deeper, seeing the problems, seeing the challenges from upstream. And it kind of become a mission that, with what we have, the expertise that we have, and the market that we have, I think we can create a supply chain. The whole value chain can be better. And then that became like the bigger drive. Once we realized to be able to have a good product for consumer, if the growers and producers cannot live a good life, how can there be a good product, right? So I think we owe our tribute to them. So that's why we've been very vocal about, as a food business, we can do something that can maybe little by little to make things a little bit better for the whole value chain involved.
Interesting. And purely as a consumer, I'm glad there are people like you and companies like you that are founded in strong values and who care about not only what they're giving to their consumer, but also care about other people in the value chain. So thank you as a consumer.
No, because I'm too a consumer,
Fair. True. And when it comes to food, it becomes even more important because there's a whole health aspect to, or the health repercussions of not having quality food. So it's, I'm glad what you're doing. During our conversations, both off camera and recently, I discovered that we have a lot in common in the sense that we both work with our spouses.
Yes.
Our first opportunity as entrepreneurs also came from Vidushi's former employer. So can you, and obviously Vidushi and you are a part of a few women entrepreneurship groups. So can you give me a bit of background on the personal side of entrepreneurship when you're working with family, especially working as a women entrepreneur, and how important it is to have support not only from within the home but also from the wider community outside?
I think in Thailand, from my own experience, I think women have been very lucky. I don't know if you also experienced the same. We've been given opportunities, and I think from my whole experience working both as in my own company and also working for a corporate, whether it's domestic or like international companies based in Thailand, I've never felt oppressed. Like personally, I feel that women can be treated as a respected individual, and so far I haven't had experience feeling not given the opportunity. Right. So I think we've been lucky with that. And being a woman entrepreneur, I think we have our advantages and disadvantages. There are things that we may not be able to do as well as men, but there are also things that men are not able to do as good as us. But one thing that I think helps is that also like working with a spouse. I mean, there are difficulties.
I know.
You don't run away from work and life. But actually, in a larger picture, is that when you're an entrepreneur, you go through phases, right? There are phases that are very difficult, phases that even your, closest family member will not understand. Right. That, why are you working 25 hours a day? Right. You're not going anywhere. You're eating like really bad, and you're not sleeping. If the partner doesn't understand, I don't think we'll be able to hold the family together, right? And to have the spouse in the business as well, you have that kind of shared understanding, shared goal of where you're heading. There are difficult times, but there are also good times, right? Yes. So that I think that helps. And you mentioned also is that to have a community of women entrepreneurs, or people who are going through kind of the same things. Right. Some also, like Vidushi also work with a spouse, and some are at the stages of the same stages of business, right. Where you're like struggling, where you're, and it's not just the business struggle, right? True. It's a lot of personal struggle as well. Like when you're coming from a corporate life, you have a title. True. You're either, marketing director, you're CEO, but when you start your own company, you kind of give that away. You're like, I read somewhere, it's like you're jumping off a ship and then you're on your own. Right now it's different, but when you start something on your own, you don't have that supporting system of big companies. Right. And that's a lot of courage and a lot of like inner work that you have to do. It's like when it's easy, like when you go to a group of friends meeting, right. Where do you work, and it could be difficult sometimes when you're not in your perfect state.
That is true,
right? So like I think that's when a community like we can, and to have people who share the same journey, not exactly the same, but the same kind of struggle, the same kind of wins, the same kind of losses. Right. It really gives you, I think a lot of entrepreneurs is that it gives you a lot of, not courage, because I think it's perseverance to give you that power to, keep going.
I hear you. And when you say these things out loud, I can relate to our story as well. Starting with your comment about Thailand and how we are lucky to be in a country where there is, in a lot of cases, a lot of parity in terms of the opportunity given between men and women. So that's something that I acknowledge we are fortunate to live in a country like that, down to working with family and things like that. So it's I hear a lot of my own thoughts resonating in what you're saying. So yeah, thank you for that background. Now jumping into business models, so it's getting slightly more technical here, is so I primarily work in a B2B environment. I work with B2C clients who then target individual customers, but my own business is very B2B. Yeah. But for you have to juggle both those responsibilities of being a B2C brand while also maintaining a B2B presence. So can you tell me about the unique aspects of each of those verticals and why you're doing both, and maybe some challenges that you face doing both at the same time?
Okay. Actually, for me, I found that in our journey, B2B has been a little bit more, not easy, but a little bit less challenging for us. I think because of the things that we are trying to communicate as a brand, or to be able to, it's like me talking to you, like I'm able to tell you the stories and the reasons behind everything that we do in person, and that's the plus point of B2B. Like when we discuss with a corporate partner, a hotel, a restaurant, I'm able to tell you, okay, why this is that, why our products is labeled as dry fruits, but it's different from other products in the market. I'm able to do that. That's the advantage of the B2B side. But for B2C, it's very hard to communicate, right? To be able, you have to be really good at communicating, and I think that's also one thing that we are still trying to develop. To be able to communicate our values, our mission, our products, our stories a little bit better. The reason that we're doing both is because I think they complement each other. Like we feel that if we are present in the B2C market at the right channel, the right target group, the right positioning, it will help it will give our B2B clients a better picture of where the products will stand. At the same time, when we're present in B2B, we also are targeting an overlapping group of customers who will, maybe sometimes find us at our partners' channels, and then they're also looking to buy, but maybe in a different format in the B2C side. So they're actually complementing each other. But there are challenges on both sides that I have to give credit also to my spouse, my partner, because we are able to help each other to do, like my main focus will be the B2B side.
I see.
And his main focus will be on the B2C side, because you're also, like when you're in retail and you're doing B2C, you also have a partner in retail who is also B2B, right? And then our online, our website is where I come in to set up the tone of the brand. How do we communicate our stories, and it comes loop, because it's the same thing that we're telling our B2B clients, that why we're doing what we do, kind of thing. So it complements. But the B2B side is also a challenge in a way. Also, it's a different kind of challenge. It's how do you maintain a balance between being able to be flexible, to tailor to the requirements, while also, because it's not just B2B and B2C, right? We have the people behind us, the upstream. How do we motivate them? How do we support and facilitate the development of the products to fit into B2B portfolio as well?
Interesting. Yeah. So you're right. It's interesting to hear it that way, where B2C and B2B don't have to work in silos. There's an interdependence between them in terms of not only creating a brand identity, but also one lending credibility or demand to the other verticals. It's great to hear that aspect, and the fact that businesses, especially in the packaged food spaces, can play within both verticals and do them both successfully. It's interesting. You mentioned that you've been doing this for quite some time. So you started with bananas, and now you have a lot more SKUs, both from the fruits and nuts verticals. So now that you have some experience under the belt, and you've been there, done that, so to say, what advice would you have for new founders in this vertical, whether it's packaged food or fast-moving consumer goods in general?
I think I don't have any advice. I think you have to been there and done that yourself.
Right.
But to share my own experience, I think is like for me, we always discuss this with my husband also, because I'm sure it's the same with you when you go through things or you have your own wins, your own losses, and then you kind of sit down and kind of debrief yourself. Okay, what just happened? You know, I think it's the perseverance that is the key factor between, to be able to hold on until you succeed. I think business have their own cycle. Right. You go through your first 3 years, and you should kind of have been able to wobble down a little bit, and then I think you must have the same kind of like cycle of business. At one point you will expand. At one point you will be given opportunities. At one point you will have to find your way to compete with new entries, and but the one thing that you cannot lose the whole journey is perseverance, and to be able to be true to yourself even in the face of both opportunities and bad luck. You just have to be able to respect yourself, and I think that requires a lot of perseverance.
It's a strong message, because so I take two things away from it. One, obviously, is that you have to walk your own journey. So I also come from a family business background, so I saw a family business when I grew up. I studied business in school. I observed other businesses, read books, saw podcasts, consumed a lot of content. But when you actually start doing things, you realize that you have learned nothing.
It's not the same, right?
it's not the same when you are faced with a situation, and there's so many unique challenges that are specific to you, your business, your team, your product, your service, whatever the case might be. And the second thing, like you mentioned, it's perseverance. Things will go bad. There's no escaping hard times. So just.
So I think you grow when you go through hardships and suffering. It's like all warriors have to have wounds. Otherwise, that means you're not going anywhere, right? It's just you gotta persevere, and also to absorb in all of the things that you don't know and try to know them. And that requires perseverance again. So that's why, for me, perseverance is the key word.
Great. So that's a strong message that I hope some new founders out there are listening to. Now, coming to our last question for the day, it's a slightly open-ended question, so bear with me. So obviously you've come this far. You've launched a few product lines, launched a few brands. What's next? So what new stuff do you have around the corner that you would like to share with us, or tease anything that you are up to, or anything that you would like our audience to know about your brand and what's next?
I think what next is, finally we're at this stage where we're able, or we should be able to communicate our stories much better. When you're starting your business, you have so many things you have to do, and then how you want to communicate, but you don't have the budget to do it, and you want all these kind of things. And then we feel that it's also our mission to let the consumers know that they have the power. I know, for me, my own experience, as a consumer, you can choose. And that's our mission as a brand, to be able to give the information, to be able to tell the stories, to raise awareness of the things involved in the whole value chain of food. And it's not just the food itself, it's everything behind it that matters. So that's the next phase of Chew Green. We'll do our best to communicate that much better, after not being able to do it so well in the past, almost 10 years. But yeah, that's the communication side. But also we don't want to just communicate, but to be able to dig deeper into we want to prove that a simple product is composed of so many things, like the planet, the environment. How can we give solid evidence that if you do this way, it can help. To be able to have the numbers. So we are working in our team to dig deeper into being responsible in our action. So we want to be able one day to, when you purchase something from True Green, I will be able to invoice you on the environmental impact, the social impact involved in this one product, so that you as a consumer or as a purchaser of a company knows that your action have impacts. And I think through that we will be able to kind of make the world a little bit better in our own way, because of all the problems that we're facing now with the environment, with the social problems and stuff. I think it is up to every one of us to do something about it. And so that's the next phase of True Green. We want to be able to do that better. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating to hear. As a marketer, I could not advocate more for storytelling because you obviously have a great product, but people won't know about it until you tell them. Storytelling, especially because you are backed by a cause, backed by your values that we talked about earlier. I believe it is important for you to tell that story, and I'm glad you're taking that step. So I'm rooting for you to tell a lot more stories.
No. Yeah, we've been lucky. Like people who we've been working with partners who understand what we're trying to do. We've had a community, sufficiency economy, Paul Audi community, who also give us support in terms of, because you don't want to just say, right? You want to have the right path to go, and actually, to tell better, that means you gotta track better, you gotta have evidence, you have to get proof and all that kind of things.
True. And I'm glad you're working towards it, because I don't think there's been a better time than now, because both at a macro level with the ESG goals and sustainability becoming more important for just the planet in general, but there's more awareness about it, there's more people caring about it. And also from a consumer standpoint, like you mentioned, a lot of times we keep consuming without realizing what impact we're having on the planet, the people who are supplying the stuff that ends up in our mouths. So I'm glad you're working towards more transparency on that, and I look forward to what you have in the future.
Thank you.
And once again, I thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and it was a pleasure learning about your journey, about your product, and just learning about the things you care and why you care about them.
Thank you so much for having us as well, for coming all the way.
No, it's a pleasure. Do you have something to say to our audience before we wrap it up?
Persevere.
Persevere. You heard that?
Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you again, Pear.
Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ.
Thank you for everybody who tuned in. We'll see you in the next episode, and make sure to subscribe.